Boy, lots to talk about. Where do we start? Here we go again. Let's start with this, obviously. Another female protagonist. A bit different from Antigone, however. Anybody have any opinions about what sort of takeaway we might have from the difference between those two plays in terms of a women's role in Greek tragedy and the fact that women aren't able to even watch them, let alone enact the female role? There are four pre-Homeric heroes before the heroes that are introduced by Homer in the Iliad and the Odyssey that are by far the most important. Perseus is the blank Greek hero, first Greek hero. The first, famous, really big-time Greek hero. Heracles was the second of the big Greek heroes, and he was also the whatist? Or the blank, the most famous, the most important, the most often worshipped, the most extensively worshipped throughout Greece, by far the most important. In other words, much, much, much different than what Disney says he was. And Theseus, how does anyone characterize Theseus? What's the first thing that jumps in your mind? Let's start with this. What's the first thing that jumps in your mind with Perseus? Medusa, what's the first thing that jumps in your maybe with Heracles? 12 labors, and which labor would you say is the most iconic of his labors? And there's a good reason for me saying that. He always wears the headdress. He always wears the skin of the Nemean lion. And it's the very first in your face of his 12. Heracles is mainly known by the Nemean lion because of the headdress and whatever. Then Theseus was the first thing you think of. The Minotaur. And then who's the fourth? That's right, the guy that we're dealing with now. So Jason is legitimately considered to be the fourth out of four of the most important of the pre-Homeric heroes. He's a different kind of hero, though, and you already get an inkling of that in the Medea, but it's even more emphasized, his difference from the other heroes in many ways that we'll get to today and next time, I think, in passing at least. When it comes to later in Greek history, in the Hellenistic period, remember I showed you the different periods, the third of three historical periods per se in ancient Greece. In the Hellenistic period, Alexander the Great, right after he died, Alexandria was already founded before he died, but became pretty much the new Athens, at least according to him. Before he died, he wanted that to happen. And there was a poet named Apollonius Rhodius. I'm not going to test you on this, but and he wrote an epic called the Argonautica, and that is the source that we depend mostly for in coming to terms with who Jason is, in addition to the Medea. Okay, those are the two most important sources for this quote, hero unquote. I did not put quotes around, by any stretch of the imagination, around Perseus or Heracles or Theseus. But I put quotes around Jason for many reasons, the most conspicuous of them being, hello, you just read the play, right? I mean, this guy is well known in ancient Greece to be a new kind of hero in the sense that he's an every person, in the old days you say every man, but every person hero. Okay, he's the guy who, wait a minute, if heroes are acting like this, who needs heroes? It's kind of like if friends act like this, who needs enemies is the idea, and so there's a long Jason chapter of the book. I get into it. I don't have time to get into it extensively today, but there are various reasons and manifestations of this idea of Jason and how different he is from all the other heroes. And it's really interesting because we could even have an argument in here a little bit about, wait a minute, he brought that up, but then she brings up her excuse for doing what she does. And so now are you hopefully already getting, and it's kind of cheating because Euripides' most famous play is the Medea, the Bacchae as well, but it's pretty much the most famous of his for good reason. It's the most obvious display of the deep psychological underpinnings of Euripides' characters that I referred to at the beginning of the semester when I compared the three big, the big three tragedians that we're reading this semester. And so hopefully we're already getting a sense of how psychologically rich what goes on in the play is compared to the plays of Aeschylus and Sophocles. You do see a trajectory. You do see Sophocles starting to, with Oedipus, with Antigone, getting into the kind of psychological depth that Euripides does. But it's important for you all to know, even if you disagree, that Euripides, one of the two things that he's most famous for in terms of innovation is this deep psychological characterization. What's the other one? I already mentioned it. The innovation that Euripides is most responsible for. So Aeschylus introduced a second actor, and Sophocles introduced a third. Euripides didn't introduce any new ones. Okay? And so the simplistic way of explaining that away is to say, well, he felt the need to innovate in other ways. And so how did he do that? And so the other really conspicuous thing that he did was depict, and it's kind of an extension of the first one, depict women, in a new way. Okay, now let's keep it neutral for now, in a new way. Because if I throw an adjective or two more than that on there, then it's kind of gets debatable. What in what sense is the way he depicts women new? That is up for discussion. I'm not going to just throw it out like here it is. But I think we're already getting a sense in the very comparison between Antigone and Medea. Let's not forget, we're not simply in a vacuum comparing those two characters, but we're comparing two female characters drawn by two different playwrights. Okay, and so Sophocles is not known for depicting, especially. Here we go. Here I'm going to throw out an adjective. Oh gosh, I can't do it. I can't throw out the adjective because, as disgusting and horrible and reprehensible and inexcusable as what Medea said, Jason ain't no bargain either. Let's really deal with this. Okay. So the question is, let's get a little bit today into. Gosh, there's so much to get into, but let's get into kind of. The whole question of motives and what kind of people Jason and Medea are, because it's obvious that you're really dealing with Jason and Medea as the anchor of this play. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, I am wrong. Antigone and Creon might be considered to be an equal kind of. You had Ismene, But they were. That was pretty much the battle between them was the centerpiece of that play. It seems to me, and obviously Medea and Jason are that emotional and psychological anchor in the Medea. But she didn't plan on killing the kids from the outset when she was trying to figure out what to do. Right. This was. Is there a point where she has a kind of we call it a revelation when it's this negative, but I don't know. The thing I need to do is, in other words, the chorus had no clue that she was going to kill kids, but they had a clue that she was going to do something destructive. Is that a more generic ominousness about her potential for destruction? Because the whole, ever since the beginning of philosophy, you get into the distinction between the particular and general. And so is she fueled more by the general or the particular, or if she's fueled more by the particular, if she's fueled more by the particular, is it a particular that would have caused her to do what she did had not all of that general experience with men in the past caused her to be that way? Let's not forget that Euripides, along with him being famous for introducing women in a completely new way into his plays, was also known, don't know if you know this, to be kind of the proto-feminist in Athens, as close as you can get. You tell me. If you can't think of it today, then send me an email. But there really isn't anyone else that comes that is as well known for being a champion of women. And what's ironic, look it up, Google it. He's also sometimes called a misogynist. Why? Because you're looking on the surface, he's depicting women as crazy, idiots and blah, blah, blah. See, that's the more superficial, at least in my opinion, perspective on Euripides, this idea that just by virtue of depicting a Medea, you're a misogynist? Nah, I don't think so, you know. So he was really well known as being a champion of women in a way that you didn't really find with others. Boiling over, right? The frustration of not being that, you know, the whole idea of the individual in society and an individual feeling marginalized by society and acting out in certain ways that reflect a frustration with their lives. The trade-off here, you might have noticed, Euripides is extremely straightforward and easy to understand. Isn't that amazing? It's like, wow, we're reading a play now, right? Aeschylus, what the hell are you doing? You know, it's like all the metaphorical poetry and all that. And then Sophocles somewhere in between Aeschylus and Euripides when it comes to that. And now Euripides straightforward, just like Homer. He's considered to be, by Aristotle, the most Homeric of the tragedians because of his straightforwardness and very subtlety. Okay, good enough.